Hey guys, so that one there in the plyometric series is the mat jump. It is one I do see quite often, especially with newbies, and it's one I don't really teach my clients at all. Not unless they're like really athletic and they really specifically need to build explosive power in that kind of aspect. But there are other ways to build explosive power without having to do that, because you can go completely wrong and do something completely hilarious, and injury risks are high at the same time. So even though it is a cool exercise, there's other ways to work around that. But if you're adamant about doing it, then these are just some things to be aware of. So first of all, it's the mat jump. So you're coming from a hinging position, pushing your hips back, and then you're exploding up to land into like a squat position, and then you're coming back down. So you want to land as delicately as you possibly can. So it's all about building explosive power, mainly around the hips and the knees a little bit. So you're also using your core as well to push through. So it's all about the hip flexor complex and all of that tied in together. So building power for that. So like what I was saying earlier, it can be built elsewhere, like hip thrust is a good one. Kettlebell swings, like the other week, is another one for building explosive power. So yeah, it does the same thing, building explosive power, hips pushed back, launching forward into a squat position, and then jumping back down into that kneeling position again. So can improve stability in joints only if your mobility isn't an issue. So like if you don't have proper hip flexion, or like you can't master keeping a neutral spine, or like you've got problems with your knees and your ankles, then you probably shouldn't be thinking about doing this. And if you do try to do this and you do have mobility issues in the ankle, the knee, the hips, you're probably going to cause more stability issues than actually improving it. So you got to make sure that you got really good alignment in the whole kinetic chain when it comes to the lumbar part anyway. Coordination, so coordination is a big one. So like it's all about working the hips and the knees at the same time, as well as bracing your core for impact and having that little crunch movement going. So you got to be able to have that power, that stability when you land, and yeah, be able to work that all together with coordination. So there's lots to it, and can't stress enough that you don't need to do this exercise, but people will do it anyway. I have seen it lately. Considerations, it looks pretty but isn't a must. So like you can build up to it. Just master the regressions like most of the movements. You got the hip thrust, so the hips pushing back and then launching forward. So master the hip flexion extension. More importantly with that, master like loading up your hips, so like with a barbell or something, and then work on a 4-2-1 tempo. So you're going eccentrically really slow, and then you're going concentrically really fast. So you're driving those hips up really fast, and got a little bit of weight to it, so you're developing some power through that movement. Also working on squat and deadlift, the whole hip hinge movement. So get that down, like learn that. That's like these two here, really most important things to learn, especially with developing the eccentric phase and concentric really sharp and fast. Having a little bit of ankle mobility is quite helpful. Coordination and explosive tempo, I've already gone through that, but all of it together, mashing it up together, you got to have it all down and packed. Otherwise you could end up just face planting, or like going completely out of alignment and blowing out your knee or whatever. Another good one, so getting the hip flexor complex and the core working together in like a laying leg raise or like a captain's chair, because then you're getting your hips to come up and work in that action. So whereas a deadlift or a squat, you're working down, you're working the bottom half coming up when it comes to the leg raise or the captain's chair. So you're working, mastering both forms of a hip hinge. So you can come hip hinge from the top or hip hinge from the bottom. So learning both patterns of the hip hinge are pretty important, especially with this one. And again, working on eccentric, slowing it down, and concentrically activating really fast. Areas of work where you're going to feel it: quads, glutes, hamstrings, core hip flexor complex calves. So like if you have any issues or any tightness in these areas, you'd probably want to address them. You probably want to test out your mobility. You probably want to also test out your strength and how good you are when it comes to eccentrically training. What I would say to someone if they had their heart set on doing the mat jump is going through the strength machines, working on eccentric tempo, then working on like free weights, again eccentric tempo, and then adding in some functional training, adding in hip hinging movements, more explosive type of movements like a kettlebell swing, and then start practicing squat jumps, and then getting up and down off your knees onto your feet, and then work on being able to develop that power to boost yourself up. But yeah, again, it is a pretty exercise. It looks cool, it looks fun, but it isn't a must-have. You will see it in HIIT programs or some certain type of advanced boot camps, but it is a quite advanced move, and you'd very rarely see myself getting a client to do it, not unless they're really competitive when they play sport, or I'm just trying to develop power in other ways. But yeah, that's the mat jump, and yeah, cool.